Everyone, welcome to another edition of Founder Wisdom Podcast. Today we have Candyce Edelen. She is CEO, co-founder, I guess, or president. There's a lot of titles here of PropelGrowth. Candyce, can you introduce yourself and tell me if I was wrong on the co-founder side?
Nope, I'm the founder, no problem.
All right.
I started PropelGrowth in 2007 on the back of a couple of other companies that I had co-founded. In that case, they were two technology companies, and I had a co-founder who was a technical genius in the financial industry. So I launched PropelGrowth after getting very worn down in creating fintech companies, and started this to serve the same market that I had been competing with in the fintech space.
How was fintech so hard? What exactly wore you down back then?
We were working with quantitative trading strategies and enabling electronic trading, and it's very technical. One of the benefits of being in it is I already kind of had a name in that space for being a creator of enabling technology for it. But after working with it for 18 years in that space, I wanted to change. And I wanted, honestly, something that was a little easier to wrap my head around, because quantitative hedge fund strategies and quantitative trading is just like, it's complicated, and I like easier.
Sure. So what was your role back then in the business? Was it the sell side of things while your partner was taking care of the algorithm side of things?
Yeah, so we weren't doing algorithms. We were building technology that enabled electronic trading messages to transmit between trading partners. So if you're sending a message to an exchange, for example, I ran the commercial side of it. I am definitely not the tech genius.
Because I see here you started in 99, which was like 1 year before the tech bubble that popped. Did you feel that? Did any of that happen during your time? Or
we were post the bubble bursting by just a little bit. What we felt more was the trade towers going down, because we had two deals that were imminently closing when 9/11 happened, and both of those firms were on Wall Street. And so I would say that affected us more than the tech bubble, because it took some time for them to rebuild. But I also am a big believer in starting a company in a recession, because it creates a level of discipline that you don't build when you start in easier times.
True that. And I was talking to a friend last weekend, and he was telling me if I lose everything, maybe I'd start a company. And I would also agree to that. If you can start at the bottom when you don't have anything and you don't have much to lose, and if you start in the harder circumstances and the market keeps getting better, I do think it's the best time to actually start something. And like you said, you will gain habits that will make you more gritty, more resilient in the good times.
Yeah, and protective, making sure that you've got a runway. When you're starting in boom times, things are easier. Business just kind of falls through the roof. But when you're in a recession, you need to go learn to hunt very quickly and be cautious about cash flow. So I started PropelGrowth in late 2007, and well, actually in July of 2007, and in August is when the Bear Stearns hedge funds collapsed, which a lot of people don't connect that in Lehman, but that was actually one of the progenitors, one of the early dominoes that caused Lehman to collapse. And so again, I was starting a business just at the head of a major recession.
And how was that? How was the stress level at that time? How was the finances? Like, was it like hardcore, or was it not like people portray it?
It was tough. A lot of companies went out of business, especially in the financial industry during that period of time. But again, it's that grit and just, being willing to get out there and hunt and build a business and do well with the clients so that you get a lot of referral business. It's it's kind of the same concept. I think that founders are not always willing to go out and do the hunting that's necessary to bring the business in. But as founders, we're the best ones to go bring in business in the early days. So I see a lot of founders wanting to hire sales a little early before they've got the message down and figured out why customers are buying. And it's a lot easier to train a salesperson if you've done the hunting yourself.
For sure. What do you think about founders hunting for VC money before they encounter real clients? And do you recommend funding in general?
That is such a big question. So we did raise funding for one of my companies. We raised an oversubscribed round in 2004.
Nice.
And we had to turn away investors. It took 18 months to get there. It was not an easy process. And at the end of the day, we did not raise smart money. They didn't really understand our business. And so that created some pretty significant problems for us. The second company, we did a strategic round with our first client, which was an easier way to raise money. And so the first time we had $1 million in revenue before we raised money. And frankly, I don't think we would have raised money if we hadn't had that kind of revenue. The second time we raised money with a strategic investor pre-money, I didn't even have a company formed before they made the decision. So it was a really different thing. But then they ended up going out of business and took us down with them. So it seems like getting strategic money is better, but not always.
What's strategic money? Can you explain?
Strategic money would be the company that invested in us was an exchange, and they saw our business as strategic to their business. And
Partners.
So we were kind of linked at the hip, and they put money in for us to build the product and build the company with the expectation that they would have some outcomes from that, both as a client and as a potential channel for selling it.
Okay, and so equity partners / shares, right?
That one was not an equity play.
Okay.
They put money in with the objective of getting product from it and being a channel, but it wasn't an equity play. The money came in as revenue.
Okay, got it. Interesting. And PropelGrowth, tell us a bit more about PropelGrowth. What do you guys do?
So I founded PropelGrowth in 2007 to help with marketing and sales strategies for companies like ours, fintech companies that were selling into the trading world, and did that for 18 years, working with various electronic trading vendors and risk management and other kinds of companies like that to help them build their own businesses and grow. In 2018, we made the decision to pivot out of the fintech space, and we're looking at commercial real estate technology as kind of a new area to go into. And yeah, it was really interesting and really growing fast. And so I made the decision to go after that, but I didn't have an existing network. So the first 10 years in PropelGrowth's history, I didn't make any outbound sales calls, because everything came to me through referrals, through the network that I had already built with those other two companies. But all of that, like it was like hitting a wall when we changed business models, because I didn't have any existing network. And I was publishing content in the fintech space, speaking at conferences that I was invited to, because I was kind of a known entity in that space, because we had brought some pretty groundbreaking software to the industry. So I was kind of known, but I wasn't known in commercial real estate. So I had to go figure out how to hunt. Looked at hiring firms like yours, looked at hiring a salesperson full-time, decided that the ramp was going to be too long, that I really needed to go sell myself, and started experimenting with LinkedIn approaches for lead generation, because I don't like cold calling. I really hate cold calling. I admire people who do it, but I'm terrible at it. And so I started doing outreach on LinkedIn, looked at the different outsourcing firms out there, the way that they publish a lot of content. So I kind of looked at what they were doing and put together some best practices and started doing outreach. And after a couple of months, found out that those best practices are designed for the LinkedIn outreach firms. They're not really, they don't really work for getting meaningful meetings. So then I started shifting my approach, and over 6 months, spending about 5 to 8 hours a week, I booked 125 meetings on LinkedIn, just doing it by myself. So I started to really land on kind of this approach that was working really well for me. I wasn't trying to get all of those meetings weren't prospects, because I was trying to do some research in the industry. But about 27 of them converted into qualified opportunities, and I closed about $438,000 worth of business off of that. So that proved the model to me. And then around comes 2020. And so I had done a webinar on that approach just as kind of a public service thing in 2019. And somebody literally had the tab open on his Chrome for a year, and finally asked one of his salespeople to watch my webinar. And they reached out to me asking if I would train their team in this. And so our new course was born. So in late 2020, we decided to launch a course on training people on how to use LinkedIn the way I'm doing it. And that's what we've been doing since. It was really helpful during COVID to be able to do outreach and teach salespeople how to be effective on actually getting meetings on LinkedIn. So we've been training people, and their booked meeting ratios have been really good. Like by the time they go through our accelerator course, by week 8 of the training, they're usually booking meetings with a 53% success ratio. So it's been really, really working.
So every 2 messages that they send, they get 1 meeting?
So the way that I break that down is you send a connection request, right? And they're getting about a 70 to 78% connection acceptance rate.
Yeah, which is good.
Then from there, you're setting the expectation for engaging with the person and getting a reply with that connection request. So start a conversation. Then their engagement rate, we haven't been tracking that, I should, but how many people actually engage with them? Then they select from these people that they're connecting with, how many they, if it's an ideal prospect for them, then they're going to reach out and go for a meeting with them. And then they'll ask a person for a meeting, and that's the 53%. But I did the math from connection request to meeting, it's about a 34%. So for every 100 connection requests, they're getting 34 meetings.
That's very good. And is that like for the real estate, commercial, tech real estate, commercial niche, or is it like for a bunch of niche together? The statistics, does it come from your...
That's across a lot of niches.
Okay, that's okay. That's across lots of niches. Do you still specialize in that real estate niche, or?
No, it's funny. The first company that reached out to us for private training was a company that specializes in providing services to the senior living communities.
Okay.
And I was surprised, because I thought if there's any laggards that wouldn't be on LinkedIn, it would be senior living communities.
Yeah.
But they are on LinkedIn. Ironically, they consider themselves to be in commercial real estate. So it was actually connected, which I didn't expect that. Then a company that sells ERP software, a company called Acumatica, came to us and asked us to train their reseller channel. Okay. And so we've done a lot in channel sales, and that's been working extremely well. So Microsoft Dynamics, Sage, Acumatica, NetSuite, those companies. But it's been across other industries too. We've had executive coaches that have come through. It's been interesting. I'm kind of surprised at the breadth of industries that it works for. The only place where we've been very unsuccessful is companies that are targeting Fortune 500 retail.
Well, yeah, that's a tough one. But still, commercial real estate tech, you target landlord, most likely, correct?
With the commercial real estate tech companies that are using it, they're tending to target investors. So it might be the landlord, but they're looking at themselves more as investors. And then some of them are targeting property managers, and they've had success in going after the property management industry.
Yeah, because that's my question, and I think you just answered it. People don't write landlord in their titles on LinkedIn, which would make my life hard when I had real estate tech clients. So you do target investors, and most of these investors, they do have properties under their portfolio, right?
Yeah, and it depends on like what the software is that's being promoted. So if it's commercial real estate, like that's a broad category, and so you might have something that's for investor management, because like you get a fund, a commercial real estate fund, and you have all of these limited partners, kind of like a VC, that put money into this fund, and that fund manager might be one of the target audience. In
Got it.
another case, it might be the property manager. So those fund managers might own a whole bunch of properties, and they might have a bunch of property managers. So if you're selling property management or lease management software, then you might target the property managers, if that makes sense. It depends on the product that they're selling.
Yeah, it makes sense. Do you have LinkedIn tips for us? What would be your top 3 LinkedIn tips for us to be more successful in our outreach?
Being human and not automating. Automating outreach on LinkedIn is a really bad idea. It's a good way to get yourself banned from LinkedIn, but also it's super ineffective. Don't pitch slap people. People on LinkedIn expect to network, not to be pitched. And when salespeople get in a hurry and try to pitch right away because they think they're saving time, they're being efficient, but it actually dramatically cuts down the results that they're going to get over starting a conversation about something that prospect would be interested in based on what they've seen on their profile.
100%. I mean, keep it human, like I think some people, they view business and life as 2 things that are separate, but in reality, it's only one. You're still dealing with emotions, you're still dealing with humans. And it's just like showing at a stranger's house without a bottle of wine and trying to take value from people and not adding value to them. So I think humans that know that and have like a high EQ, they don't get into that mindset. But when the salesperson is, they want to meet their quotas, they might hit that trap for sure. What would be a second tip on the tree that you would tell us?
I'm going to play off of what you just suggested on the wine as a comparison for pitch slapping. Imagine that you have the best wine in the world, and it's like, it's really good, but you go door to door and try to get strangers to taste your wine. Yeah. It's free, so it's not a pitch slap, right? But nobody's going to try your wine. It's like, I'm not crazy. I'm not going to try a stranger's glass of wine. What are you trying to poison me? Like, what's in there?
Yeah, for
and
sure.
I think that the same mentality is true on LinkedIn. Just because it's free doesn't mean it's not a pitch slap.
It's like the connection, like seeing the shade through the door is like at the connection stage. And when you send a connection message, and a lot of people pitch in their connection message, that's not a good practice. That's why we recommend here that when you send a connection message, you try to add value in there. And typically, you need to post valuable stuff on LinkedIn. So me, when I do my connections on LinkedIn, I do connect with like some people that I want to connect real quick always, and some of them accept even without a message. Probably I shouldn't do that and take more of my time. But when I connect with people that I really, I would like to do business with them, tell them like, look at my posts. I post tons of valuable content in here, can benefit from that. And guess what? Like I need you to interact with it, like comment, because I can also gain value from you telling me that I'm not right on that. So that's a good practice also.
Yeah, what a lot of people feel like they're being inefficient by personalizing connection requests, by taking the time to research the lead and figure out some sort of nugget that they can start a conversation with. And they feel like, well, it's more efficient for me to just click the connect button and move on because I can get more done. And I get a lot of, so if my connection acceptance ratio is 20% when I send a blank connection request and 50% when I send a personalized, but I can send so many more, then doesn't it make more sense to send blank connection requests? Well, that's true if all you're trying to do is get connections. But if you want to book a meeting with that person that you've connected with, then I want to talk about effectiveness over efficiency. And what I have found is that using some nugget to start a conversation, not about my product, but about them and something they're interested in, Dale Carnegie 101, right? Talk about the person's interests. And if I can start a conversation with them about something they're interested in, my booked meeting ratio goes way up, but also it doesn't take very long. Usually somebody will book a meeting with me within 2 messages. So it's not like it's some long process that's going to take me 3 months. Now, sometimes it does. I had one guy, it took me a year to get a meeting with him. But, that would have been true if I was doing outreach in any other approach too, if I'd gotten anything at all. So think less about efficiency and more about effectiveness.
That's a good one. Was the guy that you waited 1 year to get a meeting with, did he close? Was he worth the wait?
He actually sent me several pieces of business. He never bought from me directly, but he owned 7 commercial real estate tech companies. And so what I did is I networked up to him, collecting information from some of those companies, but then he also referred me back down into his companies and referred me laterally to other companies. So it was a great connection, totally worth my time.
Cool.
And he's become a friend too, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, that's always great, because I find that people usually that always push the ball further down, they never really close. And well, that's my general feeling in business. People that can't act quick, not too quick and impulsively, but people that take forever to take a decision, usually they're just not worth the time, and they're not interested in doing business. But cool to find out that it ended up well for you. Question for you, Candice, as we have only a couple minutes left, and I want to get more in the personal stuff. What do you feed your brain nowadays? Any books, podcasts, or YouTube channels that you'd recommend us?
Well, right now I'm reading Marcus Sheridan's book, They Ask You Answer. Really great book in terms of just trying to connect your marketing and your content to customer questions. So that's been great. And then I listen to podcasts. I like the B2B Marketing Hour is a podcast that I got to guest on. Funnel Amplified is another one that I really like in terms of podcasts. And I'm constantly on LinkedIn reading. I get so much value from people's posts on LinkedIn. It's just, it's like a constant learning process. I love it.
Oh, well, same here. And give me feedback on my posts, because I try my best to add value. I'll check yours too. Any habits that you've been practicing that has been adding lots of value to your entrepreneurial life?
Well, in terms of growing my presence and growing my audience, posting every day on LinkedIn is making a big difference. But commenting, I'm finding the comment strategy is even more important than the posting strategy. But then I hired a sales coach. His name is Ari Galper, who taught me the 1-call close process. And that process of working an opportunity has been really profound. I really appreciate the coaching that I got from him. So I guess that's 2 things. So
the call closing approach. Tell us a tad more about that one call closing approach. What is it like the name say? Well, you use clarity, you communicate everything in 1 call, and at the end you get a yes or no. Is that
so ironically, there's no pitching, not even during that call. So I'm actually looking off to the side because I'm looking at a prompter that I have from him that it just kind of talks about going down this iceberg of pain. So, you know, you're asking them to tell you a little bit more about their business and their situation. And I find, because my headline and my LinkedIn profile are really well dialed in, when I ask them that kind of general question, they tend to go right to what they're trying to do on LinkedIn. And then, you know, just digging for the pain. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? And not trying to sell. Don't offer to solve the problem on that call. That's a big problem for me, is I tend to do a lot of free consulting. And it doesn't work. It doesn't necessarily close business. So I spend more time now engaging them in dialogue about what their situation is, and then asking if it's a priority.
What I love about this approach is that we're human minds, we forget. And when we get on that call, we forget our pain. And the goal is not to put the pain in the face of the other and be a sadistic human being, but just to remind the person, hey, this is why you are here. You probably have this pain, and I can potentially solve it. And guess what? If you don't remember your pain, or if you don't have pain, well, maybe we're not a good fit. I cannot cure a pain that doesn't exist. So
exactly.
I love it.
I'm moving on if there's not a pain, but it's also, it's a very genuine approach, and people really like it. Like they feel like you care, which I do. I genuinely really care about people's situations, and they experience being cared for and cared about, and that I care about their situation by letting them do all of the talking, really.
That's super cool. One last question for you, Candice, as I know you probably need to go. What is one piece of advice you would give to founders out there?
To founders, make sure that you understand your product market fit, that you are directly communicating with your customers, and you're learning what the message is, because you're going to be the best person to articulate your messaging and your value proposition down to the rest of your organization. But also make sure that your sales team and your marketing team get direct access to customers too. I see too many silos where especially the marketing team doesn't get access to go talk to live customers and prospects. And it's not going to help your messaging if your people that are devising that messaging don't have direct access. The more you can mimic and parrot the voice of the customer, the more effective you will be at growing your business and understanding how to better help them with additional pain points to expand your offering.
It's so good. Yeah, using vocabulary that's similar to theirs and getting in touch with their emotions, their pain, like we chatted earlier. So that's so good. Candice, thank you so much for the value that you added today. We hope people can find you online. I saw a website, I saw your LinkedIn. Where should people exactly find you?
So PropelGrowth.com is our website. And then they can come to me on LinkedIn. I'm Candyce Edelen on LinkedIn. Pretty easy to find. I love getting connection requests. So just send me a connection request saying that you heard me on this podcast, and I can send a thank you to Charles. And, I would love to hear from you. I engage with everyone who connects with me on LinkedIn. So don't be shy.
And I must mention that Candice is with a Y. Okay,
yes.
So Candice with a Y, that's important. Thank you so much, Candice.
Thank you, Charles. I really enjoyed chatting with you.
Bye-bye.